This is DJI, the company that controls around 90% of the US consumer drone market. That's an insane level of dominance, but how did it get there? How did it go from a small startup making flight controllers to a company that's essentially defining the world of drones? What decisions did it make early on that let it keep winning year after year? And what does it actually take to build that kind of dominance? I'll give you a hint. This pattern can be seen in every great product company. Let me explain. In the mid-2000s, remote-controlled flight was still mostly a hobbyist world. People within the hobby had the goal of making these smaller-scale versions of aircraft in a way that mimicked the original aircraft flight characteristics as closely as possible, meaning they also tended to be as hard to control as a typical aircraft. If you weren't experienced and didn't learn how to pilot, you would crash. It was a pretty difficult world to get into, and that's actually the core problem DJI's founder, Frank Wang, obsessed over. RC flight was too hard for normal people to enjoy, and that difficulty capped the entire market. In an attempt to fix this, Wang focused on a fundamental component of the drone, the flight controller. See, the flight controller is basically the drone's brain. In essence, it takes your inputs, does some calculations with it, and converts it into outputs for the aircraft. It's what is responsible for a stable flight and making sure that the drone doesn't instantly wobble and crash into the ground. Wang's goal was to create a flight controller that helped you much more in controlling and stabilizing the aircraft, and so made flying much more accessible and easy. In 2006, DJI was founded in Shenzhen, often referred to as China's Silicon Valley. In the early years, DJI focused on and became known for making flight controllers that allowed much more stability and control in flight, to the point where they could, quote, help anyone achieve and enjoy the experience of flight. Wang likely thought it would help some more people get into remote-controlled flying, but what he probably didn't know at this point was that this became a turning point in the drone industry, something that would unlock billions of dollars worth of market share. But I'm getting ahead of myself. In 2011, in an effort to expand operations into the US, Wang struck a deal with Colin Gwynn to set up DJI North America. Gwynn had a 48% share in DJI North America, whilst DJI held the other 52%. The thing was that this time, the goal wasn't to sell flight controllers, but to make an actual drone. Gwynn wanted a product that could give people stable aerial footage, and DJI had one thing that made that realistic: a flight controller that was easy enough for beginners to use. At that time, camera drones weren't that common and as refined as nowadays, which DJI saw as an opportunity. Combine that with the fact that by 2011, DJI brought the cost of making a flight controller down to under $400 from around $2,000 in 2006, they would end up creating the first DJI drone, the Phantom, and it changed the game. It was a ready-to-fly camera drone that you could attach your GoPro to, and made use of the clever DJI flight controller that meant that any beginner could intuitively fly the drone. And all of this for the insanely low price of $629. Remember that at this point in time, most drones were not only very difficult to fly and control, but they would also easily cost over $1,000. Its accessibility, affordability, and ease of use meant that it surpassed all expectations and understandably became a massive success, some considering it one of the most influential consumer drone products ever made. While sales numbers don't exist, it's estimated that in the first 2 years of the launch of the Phantom drone, DJI sold over 500,000 of them, with DJI's 2014 sales reportedly sitting at around $500 million. But contrasting that insane success of their first product was the relationship between Gwynn and Wang, which was tense. Gwynn would regularly call himself the CEO of DJI and would take credit for innovations that DJI made. And not only that, Gwynn would apparently tend to rush into business deals, with the cleanest example of that being the GoPro situation. GoPro had the intention of creating their own camera drone, and so came into contact with DJI with the idea of a deal where GoPro would sell a drone under the GoPro brand, while DJI would provide the engineering and manufacturing. And on paper, that sounded like an excellent way to get more business, because GoPro at that time was the action camera brand. And while Gwynn agreed to and was pushing for this idea, Wang wasn't such a big fan of it. The deal would treat DJI like an OEM, original equipment manufacturer, not an equal partner. Wang described it as saying GoPro would make 2 points of profit and DJI would make 1. And if DJI's entire advantage was the hard engineering, being positioned as the lower profit partner was basically giving away future brand equity for short-term distribution, so he rejected it. This is around where the relationship between Wang and Gwynn starts to break down. In 2013, DJI tried to buy Gwyn's stake in DJI North America, offering him a 0.3% stake in DJI's global business, but Gwyn rejected it, believing that he was entitled to much more compensation because of his role in the success of the Phantom drone, and he actually sued in early 2014. The dispute later settled out of court for an undisclosed amount, apparently under $10 million. But what this shows is that DJI wasn't going to take a shortcut to scale with the consequence of losing the branding on the products they were making. Wang chose that DJI wasn't going to become a supplier, but the actual brand. But this also meant that he couldn't let the Phantom be a one-off success. He had to innovate and stay ahead. See, the first Phantom proved the demand, but it also exposed some annoying friction points. You still had to bring your own GoPro camera to attach to the drone, which meant there was an extra cost and extra hassle of mounting it. And even if the drone was stable in the air, the footage could still look shaky. There was no gimbal to eliminate vibrations or smoothen the movement. So for the next drone iterations, DJI was centered around removing those pain points. The Phantom 2 improved flight time with DJI's intelligent flight battery and properly supported stabilized gimbals like the ZenMuse line. The Phantom 2 Vision added in a built-in camera with Wi-Fi live view to your phone, and the Vision Plus added a 3-axis gimbal to properly smoothen the footage. Then the Phantom 3 made the integrated camera and 3-axis gimbal standard, and the higher-end models added Lightbridge HD video downlink so you could clearly see what you were filming at a distance. And this is where you can see DJI's philosophy clearly. Once the Phantom proved the market, every next version was about improving the result and removing more friction for the user. And despite great success with these new products, they wouldn't stay complacent. In 2015, DJI partnered with Hasselblad to try to provide a better drone camera experience for their customers. Later in 2017, DJI actually took a majority stake in Hasselblad to consolidate their ability to produce high-quality cameras, showing how DJI is doubling down on constantly improving the drones, because, after all, that's what the customers care about the most. This extreme lack of complacency also permeated into their product lineup. While the Phantom was successful, it still had core issues, one of them being its size. So in 2016, DJI released the Mavic Pro, and this was the next game-changing moment because the drone was able to fold, making it genuinely portable while still delivering the same high-quality footage people were used to. This reduction in friction without compromising on quality is what helped the Mavic Pro become extremely popular and help push drones further into the creator world. To capitalize on drone popularity and give people more opportunities to enter the drone market at different price points, DJI also made simpler and cheaper drones like the Spark drone and later the Mini series, which was designed to weigh under 250 grams, as in many countries, drones under that weight don't need permits to be flown. DJI was strategically covering and capturing the drone market. And at the same time, DJI took that trust and technical advantage they had from drones and pushed into adjacent creator products like the Ronin gimbals, the Osmo line, and portable microphones, creating a comprehensive creator toolset using technology they were already some of the best in. It seems like whatever niche DJI decides to join, it just dominates, which only works if your R&D machine is built to move fast, and DJI's clearly was. DJI is known for a tough hiring process and an insanely competitive internal culture, where teams compete directly to come up with better product designs in an almost cutthroat environment. Taking that into consideration, it makes sense why they're always pushing the boundaries for product innovation. And you can see how far that product obsession took them in market share numbers. DJI reportedly controls more than 70% of the global drone market and 90% of the US consumer market, which is an insane level of dominance. This is not even mentioning their domination in the commercial sector. We've been talking about their success in consumer-level products, but they also diversified their product line by offering bigger, more professional drones for businesses to use, which allows for more financial stability that doesn't depend on consumer demand. Now, we've talked about all the successes, but DJI still faces some very real challenges and setbacks. For example, in 2023, a US jury found that certain DJI drones infringed Textron's patents tied to features like automated hovering and relative positioning, and DJI was ordered to pay damages reported at around $279 million. Another setback they had was that in December 2025, the US added DJI to a list that can block new DJI drone models from being imported and sold unless cleared by security agencies due to national security concerns of DJI being Chinese. Now, there are plenty more setbacks that DJI has faced, but if I include all of them, this video becomes endless. What matters is that none of them ever changed DJI's core philosophy. DJI's rise looks like a story about drones, but in reality, it's a story about execution. They found an issue people had and decided to solve it. They kept on finding points of friction and ways to improve the experience to ultimately create the best product they could. And that's the real reason why DJI became so dominant. They focused on their products, and this seems so obvious, but it's so easy to lose track of the main goal in business. It's easy to forget the mission and just chase growth as quickly as possible. But what DJI did instead is treat growth as a symptom rather than something they focus on. They focused on making the best products, and growth would eventually be inevitable. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, YouTube thinks you'll enjoy this video next. See you next time.